Welcome in. It's a special Masters edition. Cue the music, cue Jim Nantz, cue it all here. The same day in which the college basketball season comes to an end, Ben Raza splits his day by looking ahead at one of the most magical, magnificent sporting events we have on the planet, and that is at Augusta with the Masters at Jazz Raz DFS. Is Ben Raza. I'm at Shander Show. I'm Eitan. We appreciate you being here with us on the Odd Shopper Golf channel. Continue to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe with us. But Ben, we have a little bit to look back at the Valero, including some prophetic words that you hit us with on the end of the last show. I know you're still patting yourself on the back from the DFS world, but hey, man, we have a lot of great things to talk about, both looking back and moving forward.
Damn right we do. Great time of the golf year. Obviously feeling good. Little momentum heading in. We were all over the board. Corey Connors, guy is a machine at Valero, and he's going to be a popular name this week. But listen, it's the Super Bowl. It's the tradition unlike any. It's just the best. It's the Masters. We've got the field. We've got the course. We've got everything you could want. And hopefully we've got the bets. That's what we're here to do. Cash some tickets if you're just joining us for the first time here at Odd Shopper Golf. That is the plan of action today.
So the big thing I think that we took away from last week, before we move forward and highlight just a couple of things that you can take advantage of, including a free week at the Odd Shopper Premium tool, which you can now use for golf, mind you. But at the Valero, or even before the Valero, you mentioned Corey Connors. You touched on it there as far as guys that if you are definitely confident in, you would want to bet ahead of time. The ending was the ending, right? We saw how that thing kind of shaped up with Connors and a couple of guys hanging around. It was definitely tight by all means, but was there anything on the back end or maybe the other side of it that you thought, all right, well, this is a guy that played so poorly, like Hatton, for example, who was coming in with a hand injury, missed the cut. How much do you extrapolate, do you take away from the Valero on the negative side, as much as we talked about getting ahead of the positive?
So I don't take a ton from it, but we both, and again, to your credit and mine, honestly, we both talked about if you are looking for a Masters position on a guy that played at Valero, you want to base it on how he played there. Because if he misses the cut, you're going to get better odds and you would have wanted to wait. And if he won the tournament, like Corey Connors, obviously Corey Connors' number is only going down. So to me, you have the extremes of Connors and Hatton. In the middle, you've got a guy like Hideki, who was fine. I feel basically the same about Hideki as I did going into Valero as we head to Augusta. So I don't think it makes a major difference, but I do think it makes a major difference in the numbers that we're going to find today.
Yeah, and that's going to be the key here, is getting ahead of everything, right?
Yeah.
Like making sure, and we constantly tell you about shopping lines in golf. It's more important than anything. We do have our tool that's available here for you, the Odd Shopper Premium tool. We'll give you a week. Just sign up free. We'll give you that week. And you can see, right, like all the different opportunities that can pop up. And like, for example, Colin Morikawa is down at plus 2,500. I had a shot of him at plus 2,900. And then you start to see the rest of the books, right? 2,000, 22 to 1, 22, 22, 2,000, like DraftKings at 2,200 versus FanDuel that had it at 2,900. I jumped in, right? All right, you throw $10 on Morikawa here. We can talk about the merits of that bet in a second, but the tool itself, Ben, presented so much opportunity that I knew, all right, well, one book is off and everybody else is hovering in that same area. Chances are that FanDuel is going to drop versus $7 books moving up.
And that's in fact what happened. And yeah, again, first of all, it's a completely free week. So you just want to try it out for Masters Week, no strings attached. A lot of bets are going to grade out as no value because the market is in line. But every so often, we're going to catch those prices and be able to lock in those numbers on some of these names. And so it's very exciting. Obviously, when we look at the top of the Masters board, it's the best of the best. You're going to get big names all over the place. And that makes it a difficult challenge to break down.
We have Scotty Scheffler looking to do something that is very difficult, which is repeat champ. We have Rory, who is looking to do something that hasn't really been with him, and that's winning events, tournaments. We had Rahm, who was on fire. I mean, this man looked like he was walking out to the first tee with kerosene and somebody lit a match for like 4 or 5 straight weeks. And then he's cooled off a little bit. And then you see there's a little bit of a gap, right? I mean, that's 700. And we're on DK, so you can shop and see around. But you clearly have 3 guys who the books are looking at as the strongest odds-on favorite, although there are warts in all 3 of their attempts here to win this thing. And then if you want to call it like the 1A, I guess, of the top end, right? That's where I think it opens up some fun conversation about value.
Yeah, and I think it's reflective of where we're at. I truly do view it as a big 3 right now. Yep. The odds do. And then there's a group of, I honestly think it's like 10 plus golfers that are fighting for 4th on tour right now. And you see Jordan Spieth's name at 16-1 all the way down to, I mean, is it a crazy stretch to say that Max Homa is 4th? How good has he played at times? So it's a huge batch of guys. I think step one is if you're going to bet one of the big 3, you're obviously going to get a pretty shitty number, sub 10-1. But you're, of course, taking a guy that is very likely to be at least in contention.
Well, let's look at this real quick. Do you have any interest in any of these 3 guys at the top? I don't think that I do, in the sense of this is about finding some value here. And even if it's a 22 to 25-1 guy that I can work a top 20 ladder or something along those lines, I feel better off than sacrificing a lot. Like Rory McIlroy, for example, is going to have to win and have to look a lot better, especially with his putter at 7-1.
I'm okay with it. I'd probably rather pick up shares, maybe try to roll the dice and get one of these guys live, particularly Rory. I do think Rory is going to win. I'll get that right out there right now. Yeah, no shocker.
Rio are on your ticket. Shocker.
I mean, I've said that for half a decade, maybe more, that Rory's going to win this tournament, and he's been close. He's going to do it this year. And if he doesn't, I'll say that he's going to do it next year. I really like the setup for him. I don't like 7-1. I'd probably look to maybe attack him in other ways. So for me, I'm more interested, and I want to hear your thoughts here. Xander, Finau, DJ, all 22-1. Really difficult. I'd like to get some of them on my card. Gut feel, I'm going to go Finau 1, Xander 2, DJ 3, but this is the range that I want to get in.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk through Xander here. Honestly, if you've been listening and following along on this show, you should have Jason Day at the very least 33-1. So there's no excuse right now for you to be looking around upset and moping that you have to take him at 22-1. So thinking about that right away, I mean, he is the guy, but that's cheating in right now show, Ben, because we've had him, we've talked about him. I mean, that's, again, Hovland, who's not going to win it, right? Because you have to putt a little bit. Sungjae, and I get it, like Brooks Koepka's at history here. But that's where Jason Day was, because there was concern about his health and consistency. There isn't now. He's rolling the ball exceptionally well. So take him out, and that's just a long way around of taking him out of the conversation. Finau has been a product of a lot of our conversation. I feel like that's an obvious choice for this show, and I'm glad you brought him up at 22-1. I do want to talk a little bit more from your end about Xander, because he's not on my card, but DJ absolutely is. And I'm going to work DJ a couple of ways, but he's been okay. And this also opens up the conversation about, from a betting standpoint, maybe to a better extent, your World DFS standpoint, but how forgotten, how little of an entire field will consistently get to the live guys, right? And I don't know how much Dustin Johnson at 22-1 is going to continue to pick up or move, but after a rough kind of just absent start on live, he's looked really good over his last couple of starts. And by the way, course history, I think, plays a little bit of a factor here at Augusta. He likes and knows Augusta pretty well. I love DJ at 22-1.
Yeah, I get it. I can't push back on any of that. The live guys are going to be a volatile topic of conversation, even more so now that Brooks showed some signs of life heading in. You know, his tournament that paralleled Valero, he played well. DJ was up there. So I get it. I think for me, again, Finau's just been great all year. The wins will come. The majors will come at some point if he keeps this up. His irons are immaculate. He knows Augusta. It's a good course for him. I have no problem. I don't love 22-1. But it's fine. Xander, first of all, Xander missed the cut here last year, which is like missing the cut at Augusta is kind of hard to do, to be honest, because it's not that hard to make the cut. And
Yep.
he just didn't have it. I still look at him. If the driver cooperates, we know the putter can heat up. The short game is there. He has everything that you need. All these guys do. That's why they're in this, area. I still think that Tony Finau right now is checking more boxes, though. And although the prices are very similar, identical on DraftKings, I would put Finau as my priority of the three.
Yeah, honestly, I can't fight that at all. And I think you look at it, and we didn't talk specifics, but that always comes up in conversation here. We have bent grass. This is fast. This is going to pick up. There is enough history, or maybe a couple of guys' history, that would indicate that, like Hideki, right? Like maybe you don't need to be the best putter in the group in order to win. But then you can also apply that to the other side and say, all right, if you get the right guy who all they need to do is start putting, like the guy I got at 29-1, who's now down to 22-1, everything else kind of falls in place. So there's that element to it. There is setting up your second shot, where a lot of times a right to left drive is going to have to hit with a left to right second shot, where it's not a second shot course, right? Where you're really going to have to shape and be able to go. Like Augusta is designed, Ben, for you to be uncomfortable after a good shot. And that was where I think it tests your history and kind of knowledge of it. And you're talking about Xander missed the cut. That doesn't mean he can't learn a lot from a mistake, much like DJ, who has been there and also been able to ride success in top 15s.
Yeah, I mean, Xander also, he missed the cut. He also has a runner-up here and a third. Yep. So we know we can do it. Obviously, Augusta, there is something to that. There's something to left-handed players here, not just Bubba. But again, I think that's more secondary. For me, Decky and Patrick Reed are perfect examples of this. They had course history, but not necessarily course success. They got reps, they got better, they figured it out, and then they broke through. Decky's, you want to take Hideki, his results before he won, 19th, 32nd, and 13th in the previous 3 years. That's okay, but it's not knocking on the door per se. And to me, Tony Finau kind of mirrors that. 38th, 10th, 35th. He was 5th in 2019. Close, but maybe learning more with each iteration, and Morikawa fits that as well. So a lot to choose from. It's a pretty good range. I think the next range is even tougher, though.
By the way, DJ top 20, I jumped on that minus 105. I would do the same for a guy like Xander Schauffele as well. The other guy that I wanted to mention, he's on my card in a top 20, but I do not have him winning. Actually, I do have him winning. I'm sorry.
Oh.
So you have Finau and Schauffele. I'm with you on both. Day is the guy we talked about a long time ago, so he doesn't count at 22-1. DJ is somebody we definitely agree on. The only other guy that I think I'd like to throw out here as somebody that at 22-1 I'm taking, and then also at minus 110 for a top 20, would be the expectation that course history being close, playing Augusta well over the last combined 5 years, knowing that Cam Smith can win a major, he'd be a guy that I can target.
I get it. Again, great player. You can't play everyone. Cam Smith is not on my betting card. I just don't know where he's at. Obviously, he does it a little differently. Some of his biggest wins have been with pretty below average ball striking because he putts to a level that you can't really grasp at times. He clearly can do it at Augusta. He's basically done it at Augusta. He's got elite course history without winning it. He's got a major, obviously, on the resume as well. So I get it. He is not on the card just because of the number of guys that are ahead of him for me.
Makes sense. By the way, the weather looks awful. Looks like one day, right, is going to be clear on Wednesday, and it's just going to be playing through wet.
Or Tiger. That's not ideal.
No, it should favor guys, though, who could blast the ball, especially off the tee, you would think. So,
yes, soft conditions.
Do you think that factored into a guy like Victor Hovland, who was 46-1 when Eric Lindquist and I took him combined on the odd shop last week, to now at 35-1? Basically the mid-range now. We can start looking at that area. I do not have Hovland for the show, by the way. I was just bringing him up as an example of somebody who may be able to outdrive his inabilities to hit on bent grass or putt.
So yeah, I mean his around the green game, he needs all the help he can get in that area. I do think there's something to it's more on the DFS side of like correlation with skill set stacks, but I do think even on the betting card, you want to tell that story and say, okay, I think off the tee matters the most. And if it rains, it matters double the most. Well, let's bump up Bryson types and let's bring down maybe some of the weak off the tee players and vice versa. If you think it's a scramble fest, why would you ever target Victor Hovland? So I get it. I think some of the Euros here are interesting. I know Fitzy's not healthy. Him, Decky. I don't want Connors because, again, I talked about this. If you're going to bet Connors, what were you thinking? You should have bet him already. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on Niemann. He's the guy that's staring me right in the face, just north of 50-1. He's a live guy. He's got all the talent in the world. I still think he might be a little too early. He's still very young despite being out here for 5 years. This is a tough range. I think for me, Hideki and Fleetwood are probably where I look. Fitzy's injury still worries me a bit.
Yeah, I wonder how much Hideki's number has dropped and gone up. Like, I feel like he could be an EKG over the last 3 or 4 weeks, right? Where he's been healthy, playing well, he's been hurt. So I assume it's probably evened itself out. So you said Fitzy and Decky, right? That sounds like a
Fitzy, I'm a little worried about his injury. Fleetwood at 50 is probably more my speed at this point. If you wanted to back Fitzy and you think that he's healthy, more power to you.
I don't want to take a risk at a major
it's
like
just, that. Even Decky, you mentioned the spikes. That's because from what I've heard, his injury is basically, it flares up randomly. Like he could go through a tournament with no limitations. He could be playing great golf and one swing and he hurts his neck and now he's limited again. And that's a dangerous game that we just have to accept.
So Joaquin Niemann is a pass for me because of the history here. And it's only because of that, right? Like you've seen over the last 5 years, he hasn't really, and you mentioned Hideki, and I get it, where he had that I think he had that 19 finish. But for Niemann, he hasn't been able to get through that other side. So I'm looking at him at 55-1. And again, we're using this one book as an example. Maybe it's different in another book, and this changes my perception. But for Niemann at 55-1, my reasoning of staying away from Niemann, I think, would draw me to a guy like Reed at 60-1 versus Niemann. So that's where I would kind of counter and say, I think I can get as likely of a chance that Patrick Reed, and I would play Reed, of course, in a ladder spot, like a top 20 situation. But I feel like Reed there would be at plus 180, a much better option than whatever I'm going to get for Niemann.
I can't disagree with that. I'm interested, though. To me, you can make that argument with Shane Lowry, who is great in adverse conditions. He was third here last year, never really threatened, but was up there. And he also has a major. So I know Reed has a green jacket, but at the same time, Shane Lowry, I think, fits a lot of what we could see. Not a typical, everyone, not to take a thought down the past here, but Danny Willett won the Masters. Right. But when you think about Danny Willett, he won the Masters in the most bizarro conditions that you can have. And we've seen that at times. And it doesn't take away from it, but you sometimes have to say, like, okay, if it's crazy, wild weather, who benefits? And I think Shane Lowry might be that guy who really benefits.
I don't have any disagreement on that. I feel like it's easier to forget, not to say that Lowry has been playing on American soil every single week. He is not. But this is like a poor person's version of what we just talked about with DJ, where I feel like people also don't like people want to see Reed miss the cut. So I don't know how much money he's going to take. Maybe that flips against on him, but you're right. Shane Lowry definitely fits the weather better. I don't know if he's been playing overall as consistent as Reed, but look, it's hard to argue with that if you were trying to find somebody in this range that you think, okay, we're expecting rain, we're expecting shit. Lowry is definitely going to be a guy at 60-1 or at 60, yes, to 1. So I can't fight back on that by any means.
Yeah, and listen, Reed can do it. I've seen it. He's a battler. I don't know what to do with the live guys, particularly the guys in this range, the Brysons, the Sergios. Yeah. Maybe you splash. I don't know if I'm going to have any outrights on my card. Triple digits, I think it's pretty far-fetched to say someone can win from down here, but still some names I at least want to explore. And I have one sleeper in this range for you.
Yeah, we have to talk about one guy who he's like the golf version of Game of Thrones. He's like the seriously, like this guy was talked about at length, and then all of a sudden he just fell off the face of the earth. But before that, what's going on at Bet365? It's really easy. We're going to give you an opportunity. There's a link below. So all you need to do is sign up, take 60 seconds out of your life, deposit $10, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, Colorado, you 4 states where you're betting left and right. You may not even know that you have Bet365. Well, now you do. So just deposit $10, bet $1 on anything, and you'll see $200 right back into your account. We've been telling you about this for a little bit. It was up to $365, and we were like, something's wrong. It was like we found a broken line, Ben, right? Where it was like a broken slot, like something's wrong here. And the next thing you know, Bet365 is like, hey, about that, it's down to 200. So you better jump in now is all I'm saying.
Yeah, great offer. Again, you got to be in those states. You mentioned you got to be 21 plus, all that stuff. Gambling
stuff.
Pro.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank you.
all that.
Actually, I didn't mention that. So why don't you mention that?
That's why I mentioned it. You don't think I know what's going on? Of course, you got to be 21 plus. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. But Bet365, amazing book, ton of options. People love them. I wish they were in New York very badly, but if you're fortunate enough to have it in your states, again, Ohio and Virginia and Colorado and New Jersey, why not get a couple out $100 to bet on the Masters? That sounds like a pretty good time to me.
All right. Speaking of which, we have what are you going to do anything at all? Like Bryson DeChambeau just fell off the. Do you remember like going into the halfway point of the final season of Game of Thrones? There was all of this. People were talking about this show like it was The Sopranos, like it was The Wire, like it was Oz, like it was one of these all-time epic television shows.
Wow.
And it just fell off the face of the earth. As soon as it ended, everybody was like, is this it? And then that was it. Like, I feel like when's the last time you have talked about Bryson DeChambeau in any betting or DFS circle at all about the Masters or any other major?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the life that they've chosen on Live. You don't know what the hell's going on. Obviously, Bryson's had a tumultuous season for various things, on and off the course, from what I've heard, and just I don't know where his game is at now. His game is so unique; it's extremely volatile. Like the miscut equity on Bryson, even when he's in form, is always high because when he's off, he has a difficult time to bring it back. Now, when he's on, he's dominant. He literally breaks the game at times. I don't think we're going to see that here. I'm off Bryson. There are a couple guys in the same range I'd rather go to.
Hit him up. Let's do it.
So it is some of the Live guys, but it's not maybe who you're thinking. I'm going to go kind of blind on Abraham Answer. He's 130 to 1. More so, though, instead of clicking 130, click 8 to 1 for a top 10. Like, that's more what I think is reasonable for Answer. Hit the first page of the leaderboard. He's played here. He's made cuts here. He's got top 20 here. He came in 13th a couple years ago. Where's his format? I don't know. It's hard to get a read on Live, but he had the skill sets that I wanted at Augusta long term. I think he correlates well to Neiman, some of the guys like that. He can get the irons going. Don't be shocked if he's the type of guy that gets in the mix from nowhere this week.
I like it. And I think you're also, as you mentioned, anything on Live comes with the sense of fading a majority field. And it's not ownership, but it's just like from a betting standpoint of people who probably haven't been following what's going on with Answer by any means. So applying that here, getting a top 10, 8 to 1, not bad at all. I think that definitely pops. No issue with that. Anybody else?
You know, again, I think you're going to really look more towards maybe matchups, make the cut things of that nature than outrights. Here, I'll give you one more again. Chris Kirk.
Yeah. Okay.
He's just playing really well. I did not like him at Valero, and I was proven wrong again. The guy is just in form, and I can't speak enough to how awesome it is to see him playing well. again, do I think he's going to win the tournament? No. At 8.5 to 1, can Chris Kirk get in the mix at the Masters? Yeah, he absolutely can.
So this would be a nice time to remind you all out there to join our Discord. Because I gave him out at 200 to 1. Told people throw $10, 0.1 unit on it. This is a winner. This is a guy who has been hovering, that has won. I don't care that nobody showed up to the party that he hosted. He still had a good party, right? Like, I'm sure you've been to a party at one point in your life, Ben, right? Where it was like, oh man, there's only like 7 people here, but it was a rager. Like, you had a lot of fun. It was memorable. You had conversations. Maybe you met your future wife or what have you. Like, all that stuff could be going down, right? All I'm saying is that he has won, and he has already been hovering before that. To have him with that this year's pedigree, no problem by any means with Kirk. You can throw him in there as a top 10. Gooch is a guy who popped up a lot when it came to his ability to handle the green, his ability to handle around the green, his ability to avoid a 3-putt. If you're just looking at handling the approach around the green, putting itself, and avoiding mistakes on the green, I think he's an interesting long shot, Ben, at 8.5 to 1 for a top 10 finish.
Another live guy. I don't know what he's been doing. He obviously played well. He played well here last year. A lot has changed since then. You're not going to play all these guys again. We're throwing a bunch of names out just because we want to cover guys that you should look into. I would strongly recommend not putting everyone we mentioned on your card. That's a lot of bets.
Sure.
But yeah, I get it. I think it's just kind of, to me, you would choose, if the numbers check out, you want as many positive EV bets as possible. For me, it's probably going to be like, do I want Answer or Gooch in the same range for this top 10? And I get it. They're live guys that we don't know a lot about their form.
Anybody on the way out that is just totally just beyond fucking egregious, where you're like, you know what, like Kevin Na. I mean, some of these guys have popped as far as, looking around and seeing if there's anybody who can make a push. I mean, it's not going to be Olazabal, right?
No,
so we get out of there.
No, I mean,
any
honestly,
interest in a top 10 for Kevin Na?
No, don't make that mistake. Bubba is kind of interesting, but like
he's broken. That is a broken man.
He probably is, but don't get into the like Fred Couples, Larry Mize trap of like, oh, you never know. No,
Larry Mize.
Yeah, like just don't do that. Save your money. Be smart. It's wildly unnecessary.
Real quick, we didn't talk at all about how is it possible that we need to redo this show? We didn't talk about Tiger or Phil at all. Do you have any thoughts on those guys on the way out? Honestly, clearly, you're not betting either. Phil's plus 120, top 40. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'd be closer to betting Tiger.
You're not gonna get even money for him, are you? No.
I mean, I don't know.
Minus 175, top 40.
If I could short that, I probably would.
You don't want anything to do with these guys.
No, I really don't. I think it's unnecessary. Again, if you have a read on one, more power to you. For me, just to recap on the way out here, I know we're getting to the up top. Give me Rory, give me Finau. In the mid range, I think that Decky and Fleetwood are kind of interesting, and then Abraham Answer's a guy that I've got my eye on for maybe a longer shot, hopefully a top 10, a top 20. Those are really where I'm looking. Matchups, make the cut, all that type of stuff. You can find us inside the ropes on our Discord for that stuff as we get closer to tee off.
Absolutely. And then that's exactly what I did. You can find a guy, and this will be interesting. DJ Smith, Schauffele, those type of 3 balls are out there. So make sure you hit us up on Twitter, on the Discord. Join that. We'll give you half off your first week. All of the things that we have available to you here. So we appreciate that big time. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. Ben, we'll see you after the Masters, man.
See you after the Masters.
Can you let somebody else win some money this week? Is that okay?
Rory can win the money for all of us this week.
We'll see. Wait,
Rory.
You have to hit that thing. Can you hit that thing?
Oh, I got us covered. Rory McIlroy. Put it on the board. Have a great Masters, friends, and we will talk to you next week.